What's up, world? What's up, Zion? It's Prince Easy coming at you again once more as usual. I do have a couple slides that I want to share with you this fine day that we're having. And of course, before we get to the slides, I want to issue a copyright disclaimer for the copyrighted material that's going to be shared in this here video. Right, so yeah, without further ado, you know what the program is, right? So yeah, we're gonna dive into it, right? Straight into it, right? Right? They just be announcing, like it's something new, literally. Yeah, okay, radical, they're saying. And of course, uh, these individuals keep crossing lines, right? They keep doing it over and over and over. Okay, we highly appreciate the president of France is ready to help communicate with the other partners who have necessary missiles for Patriots. We also discussed French air defense capabilities. I briefed Emmanuel on the situation with the strikes. I'm grateful for the condolences over the lives lost. Zelensky also thanked Macron for confirming his readiness to grant licenses for missile production. In addition, the president discussed the state of diplomatic work with partners and communication with the US president's team. They agreed on steps that could open up additional diplomatic opportunities. We also discussed the need for funding to finance our defense this year and next year. We identified defense agreements that need to be accelerated on our bilateral relationship. Okay, so do not get confused when the word diplomatic is used, right? These people are illiterate. They use the words wrong. Okay, so when they mean diplomacy, they mean lobbying, right? And lobbying for a very particular thing, right? Weaponry. That's what Zelensky is talking about at this point in time in the war, right? As he should, right? Does he need them? Will they help? No. Okay, same slide. He also promised to continue to increase pressure on Russia until it ceases hostilities. Furthermore, in the context of the upcoming meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, which will take place this Monday, we have revealed our commitment to achieve the peace that Ukrainian people legitimately seek. With respect for their rights and with all security guarantees for Ukraine and our continent, Macron added. Again, as if the Russians are not Europeans or they are not in the so-called continent. First of all, Europe is not a continent. Stop with that nonsense. Stop this delusion. Zelensky, Russia could produce up to 1,300 ballistic missiles a year. Currently has around 600. How do they figure that? Well, you tell me. I believe Russia could produce up to 1,300 ballistic missiles in a year. Now they have about 600 to 630. We have a fairly good understanding of the volume they are aiming between now and the end of the winter. They could potentially reach around 100 ballistic missiles a month. So you would need about 300 interceptors, right? Missiles. Putin Putin declined to specify with which exotic proposals have been supposedly received from Kiev. He said that this is the kind of probing, if possible, areas for agreement. and that these proposals have been voiced in one form or another before, but in current situation they are being presented in their own way. But it is too early to jump ahead and talk about what could form the basis of possible agreements, he said. Right, that is from Putin. Putin claimed that Kiev had opened Pandora's box when it began striking civilian targets in Russia, and that it is now receiving a response. You want to disrupt our logistics? We can raise the issue with the enemy. Well, appropriate action will not be long in coming. There you have it. And the action of the Russian armed forces are, of course, far more significant and far more destructive, the Kremlin leader said. This is 2014, I mean, because this is all where the whole situation kicked off, right? And who are in the whole situation? The so-called international community, right? And of course, NATO and all them, right? Well, this guy, very important in Ukraine, and this is what he's doing, right? Taking a knee, the ambassador of the British, right? Servants willing to do anything to be part of the international community, right? And this ambassador here is quite interesting, if you catch my drift, right? Ukraine equals freedom, equals Europe, equals Western civilization, right? And this is where we are, brothers and sisters, right? And of course, that's a McDonald on a casket of a Ukrainian soldier. These are extracts from the slide rather I showed you the other time, right? Ukraine's obsession with the Europeans, from this channel Mariupol, right? Yeah, out here proud and stuff, right? Yeah, now they are going to face the payments. Yeah, so of course the US wants to be talked about at this particular point, you know. They just want to be talked about, right? Why? I shall show you why. Yeah, measures to be taken, kwa sababu unaonekana kuna issue ya utakatishaji fedha, si ndio? Kwa njia kadha wa kadha. Unasikia mmoja anaongelea yadi za magari, kwamba watu wanafungua tu yadi kama njia ya kutakatisha fedha. Kwa kama kuna watu wanaingiza fedha ambazo not clean money, they should be dealt with, you know, or else this number is only going to increase. It's a money glitch, you know, and we all know what happens when a person finds a money glitch, the opportunity, right? So for all of those Afrophobic FBAs, well, this is not even the first to receive love. You know, you can look at others. Yeah, they don't believe, right? They do not believe. It's a strong delusion that these people are under, and that is for their own destruction, right? This is how the Creator teases them up, right? You get entrapped into dooming yourself and your future, right? So yeah, look at it for what it is, you know. Yeah, okay, going back many millennia, right? Going back many millennia. So Moses, the character, right? The character Moses, Christ himself, right? He escaped into Egypt, right? A Caucasian, you know. Well, what I've come to understand about the Egyptians, in order for you to apprehend what they are depicting, you have to have a deep understanding of physics and biology, right? Because in the field of physics, for instance, right, you see that snake and how they are shaped like that. Well, that's a fractal, not rather a fractal, but rather a vortex, right? And on top of that vortex, there is a literal sun, right? We're gonna cover this in the plasma subject when we get to it, right? We're gonna have an understanding, right? So how snakes fight, right? They intertwine, forming a vortex as they raise, right? How they fight is they intertwine, just like how we intertwine rope, right? You remember the whole creation story, the African creation story about the rope from heaven, right? How do we prepare rope for common use? We twine it, right? And that's how snakes fight, right? They twine while rising up, hence signifying a vortex. And on top of the vortex, there's a sun. That's another angelic symbolism. We're gonna get back to that at one point, right? I'm just waiting for some materials to arrive. Right? And moving to biology, their symbolism is the king cobra, right? The king cobra, right? The king cobra is a very peculiar animal, right? First and foremost, it's not a cobra, right? It's a very unique snake, so unique, in fact, it does not share any class with any other snakes, right? And its biggest characteristic is that it eats other snakes, right? So if we were to translate it into kingdoms, then that would signify absorption, right, of smaller kingdoms, right, into the whole, right? And also, right, it's a king of snakes, right? King of kings, so to speak, right? And then there's a whole cold-blooded, warm-blooded. It's a whole situation. But yeah, there's a lot of open hand symbolism with these people, right? But again, we shall circle back to it, right? Talking about physics and biology, how they have used them in their symbolism, right? They're very specific, you know. Even the snake that was put up on a stick for the people to look upon to be healed, exactly a vortex, right? He created a vortex, right? Angels and stuff, right? Yeah, right. Is targeting us? Maybe. Partially, perhaps retaliation, no? Yeah, what is happening in the world these days? These are just a foundation of a bigger scheme, and my suggestion is that now is about the time you get on top of it. Stop thinking that all of these things that are happening over there, they are sheer coincidences, right? For instance, I'm gonna bring your attention to this matter. For instance, right? I'm gonna give you a clue, a clear, open clue, but you have to have some research in order to understand, right? For instance, what is the connection between earthquakes, right? Take the last, I don't know, let's say 7 big earthquakes over the last couple days, right? The latest being Japan, right? Not that I have any form of influence in Japan, but hey, we're not in the business of imposing here. But I'm nice like that, right? So, what is the connection between earthquakes and the financial market? Specifically, bonds and the dollar, the US dollar. The connection between earthquakes and economic systems. 2 things, the dollar and bonds, government bonds, to be specific also. I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope I'm talking to people who are smart enough to figure it out what I'm talking about. So apparently Iran done shut down Britain's power plant. The Iranians have not said anything. But here they are, folks. And of course, Vance, with all the power bestowed upon him, he was talking about this country was plundered over a generation. Was? Really? Was? They call it a secret war. So, talking about wanting to be spoken to, that whole saying that I'll circle back to it, well, a lot of statements have come out from various governments across the world, right? Saying that they will not comply with these unilateral, is that what they call them, right? Unilateral sanctions. And I heard they have a whole sanctions department out there as a branch of the government, just to hand out sanctions to people, Yeah, these people are losing their coins and their minds at the same pace. So, when this happens on the other side, I don't need to hear any, what do they say, complain, right? This is the response from the Iranians, okay? yeah, as you can see, right, he's front and center on every headline. Every messed up thing wrong with the world right now has something to do with Trump. Well, they should get exactly what they are asking the world to give the Iranians, and that is isolation. That's what they are talking about, that's what they are aiming for, and that's what they are projecting, right? They are not ready to recognize their stupidity and their errors. They rather lash out and misdirect their misgrievances on other people, right? They're funny like that, right? So again, they're hoping for Iranian isolation. They're the ones that should be isolated, right? This is the diplomatic war. Anybody can chime in. So yeah, where I am, it's Monday 10:24. Okay, 10:24 at night. So I'm gonna put a pin on this right here, and of course you are free to come to any conclusion to the information I provided. But yeah, I asked to be heard and I was heard. It's easy signing out. Love you. Bye.